starting lineup of your favorite show. At producer, 5'11" from Blanchester, the Cow Killer, Casey McCollister. And comic engineer, standing at 4'8", the pride of the West Side, Elliot Broering. And your host, weighing 150 pounds, soaking wet, from Hamilton, Ohio, Ace Fowler.
Now, I had an idea for today, but unfortunately, the corporate man, the big man, they usually don't like it when you play music that they created, right? So you get what they call a copyright strike. But I say we stick it to the man. You ready?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
You were off key. You have to go. You were off key. Go.
That's actually really good. Casey McCollister coming in hot. It's March. It's March, which means we are one step closer from what Elliot would call real events occurring.
Correct.
So what some would say to care about. But this is Friday, and it's the best Friday edition of Off the Bench that we can try to ever create on March 1st. And it is always presented by United Dairy Farmers, so very much thanks to them. We come your way every single day, Monday through Friday, from 10 to 12
p.m.
Which means we will probably be off the air somewhere around 12 today, hopefully. Today we did get off to a good start, although Casey drops right before the show starts, Casey drops oh no. And immediately me and Elliot look over at 9:59 and think, oh no, the show's not going to work. Something's going wrong. And he then proceeds to say, the Bengals are talking to wide receivers. Casey, I'm pretty sure the Bengals are going to talk to every positional group that there is known to mankind for the combine. I don't think you need to worry about it. We have a host of topics to discuss today. The combine, I'm sure, will come up. Why wouldn't it come up? So we have intro and headlines as always with Elliot here in just a moment. We have the combine, new ideas, Rick Broering, and we have some a list here on the road trip. Maybe some things that people would like to see. There's some things that I think that Elliot's trying to dodge because of fear. He's making excuses already of certain things that he doesn't want to do because of fear. Yet he uses different terms to try to make the excuse as to why. We'll get into that in our top road snacks, which we won't start discussing now because if we do, there will be a debate immediately and we'll ruin that segment right at the top of the show.
Yep, we got to say.
But before we get any farther, I should have asked you this before the show started, Casey. Are we still having the glitch issue at all? Is that a thing, or did we figure that out? What's the deal there?
Well, you mean like the camera's like freezing? What do you mean the glitch issue?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I can't control that. It just happens right in the middle of the show.
No, but I'm saying, is it continued?
I mean, it
so far we feel good about it.
Yeah, I feel good about it today. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Nothing's happened today. We look pretty good today.
All right. If it starts happening, I think we have to blame somebody. That's how society works.
Yeah.
I think that let's take a vote. I say that Casey gets the blame. Elliot, who do you think should get the blame?
I agree. Casey, you get the blame.
All right, 2-1 vote. That's how it works here in the office. So congratulations, Casey. Hopefully you can clean up the camera situations today and keep us nice, beautifully in frame and not glitching. Seems like our clips, our clips recently have been very
been a little bit glitchy.
very glitchy. But the audio sounds good.
Yeah.
It's almost like this show. You know, it's tough to figure it all out. So it's like. It seems as if we are I don't know, maybe we're the Cowboys. Once we figure out one side of the ball, we can't figure out the other side.
Yeah.
And we can't put it all together, as they say. At first, we had the audio glitch. Remember that? We used to have the little popping noise. It would pop, pop, pop. And then the cameras look pristine, perfect, as some would say. Yep. And then next thing you know, we figured out the audio. Now we have a glitching machine that is the cameras. And Casey's not taking blame for it, though. He's not gonna be the guy that stands up there and take the blame, are you?
I've not changed anything except for We have Ultra Fiber, so I don't know if that has.
Oh,
And I don't know who decided
now
to change.
we're blaming
stuff.
the fiber.
I don't know. I mean,
We've also had some internet issues, really. I mean, yesterday it went out a couple times, so you
that wasn't the internet.
What was it?
That was YouTube.
Hey, Nate's Nate's a nut cutter. Thank you very much, Nate. We appreciate your support. And thank you to everyone else that supports us in a whole host of capacities. Just signed on the dotted line yesterday, like I said, for that agreement. Monday, we will make the announcement on who that is, how you can support us. But as always, another big thank you to United Dairy Farmers. I think we bring them up at the beginning of the show, we bring them up at the end of the show, but genuinely speaking, they've been a pretty big impact on our small company. So thank you, United Dairy Farmers. If you get a chance, go get some coffee. And my personal favorite, of course, at any time of the day, I don't think that there's ever a bad time to get a malt. Do you think there's a bad time to get a malt, Elliot?
Probably 8 a.m. I don't
You think that's a bad time?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
Of all the guys, I thought you were going to be supportive.
Well, at 8 a.m. it seems kind of. I mean, I guess if you're pulling an all-nighter, maybe something like that. But at 8 a.m. seems a little tough to explain. Like you're going into work, you got your coffee, and then you're like, "Oh, can I get a malt?" That just doesn't. I don't think it works like that. I could be wrong, but I don't think it works like that. Just my opinion. Just my personal opinion, but that's whatever. You want to get into some of these headlines?
I mean, I don't know. Casey's got screens glitching everywhere.
Our screens.
Casey's looking at me like we're down. Casey, are we down? We up? What are we?
We're not down. We're just the cameras just start glitching again. Though I mean, it's in the middle of the show. I don't know what to do.
So the cameras are glitching. We're
So
having serious problems.
so it sounds to me like you have a situation going on over there that you can't figure out.
I mean,
Even better yet, you haven't tried to figure it out. Is that what it is, Casey?
What do you mean I haven't tried to figure it out? I've tried to figure it out.
I don't know.
I've not seen him. I've not seen. Have you seen him? Have you seen him?
I
Have
haven't
you
seen
seen him
him figure
looking?
it out.
Have you seen him looking at the cameras, Elliot?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
I haven't seen it.
This
I mean,
is-
maybe he's doing it off.
I don't know. Maybe
later.
this is what you do. You kind of sound like the Bills general manager right now.
You
You
do, a
know,
little
you're
bit.
like, oh yeah. I mean, if I got to pick first and second every other year, I'd have great players too. That's the kind of Casey McCollister we're getting today on a Friday.
If you wanted to sound like the Bills head coach, you'd mention a tragedy that happened in 2001. But
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
So,
or if you mentioned Dan Campbell, you would just say, we're going for it no matter what.
we're gonna bite your knees off.
I'm gonna bite the cameras. How about that?
Yeah,
Elliot,
please.
headlines before we go off the air.
The Lakers, NBA news.
Oh, we got another member.
Another
right.
member.
Who?
Nothing matters. Sir Boy.
Sir
leader
Boy's
of
back.
men.
He was a member, and then he declined us.
He's
and
a
then
leader
back.
of men too. That's a different type of nut cutting.
He's been making a bunch of photoshops of Reed and myself on X.com. They
And
look
they're-
very
and
realistic.
Well, I think they're funny.
I think they're great.
I think they're great, but
The ones
I'm
of Reed
just,
especially are funny.
I just got a new one.
so
at
did
10
I.
a.m.
He texted me too. Might as
I
well
love
put us
that
in the
one.
group chat. All right. Headlines from last night. Very serious sports talk show. Let's dial it in, guys. The Lakers. NBA news.
That's
Love
a
talking
different
about the
show.
NBA.
That's a different show. Dialed in.
The
Not our show.
Lakers, by the way, dialed in today after the show at 12. The Lakers, they fend off the 9-50 Wizards in overtime. Real tough accomplishment there. LeBron, though, is 9 points away from 40,000 career points. LeBron James, 9 points away from 40,000 career points. That's my GOAT. I don't know if you guys have an opinion on that.
That's
but
an absurd.
but that's
We're
my
not
GOAT.
doing
A lot
that
of
today.
points.
In fact, that's the worst sports talk debate topic that there is. Yet it always plays.
Always
We could sit here and argue about LeBron and Jordan
plays
right now
because LeBron's
for
better,
20 minutes.
Because LeBron's better in every statistical category.
I don't
And
give
then
a rat's tail about your statistical
Michael
categories,
Jordan's
Mr.
better-
Analytic
the
guy.
one thing
okay,
Michael-
watch the game.
The one thing Michael Jordan is better than LeBron at, Bill
Yeah.
Russell's better than
Longevity.
Michael Jordan at. He's not even the best at what he's better than LeBron at. It's just preposterous, but whatever. So they beat off the 9-50 Wizards. Victor Wembanyama, he accumulated 28 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists, and 5 blocks. He was close to hitting that quadruple double, what do you call that? Actually, I don't even know what you call that. In the Spurs win over Oklahoma City. Again, nobody cares, but I'm going to read it out anyway. 17th ranked St. Mary's. They obliterated Pepperdine 83-57. Fun fact about Pepperdine, it was where Zoe 101 was shot. That is the campus Zoe 101 was shot at.
That was about as useless as the last score you read.
23rd ranked Gonzaga. They were up 1 point at the half against San Francisco. 1 point. They
Yeah.
opened up the second half on a 24-3 run.
Wow.
They won that game against San Francisco by 18. USC and Bronny James seemingly had the lead the entire game right up until the final minute, where Washington State, 19th ranked Washington State, took the game back, and they won the game 75-72. How about this, Trace? The Diebler wagon rolls on. They beat Nebraska. Ohio State is not dead yet. Thoughts on Jake Diebler?
I asked the question, what does he have to do to get the job at Ohio State? And I think that there was a varying of opinions there. Sweet 16 was what one seemed to. I could see that. If he gets the Sweet 16, you got a chance. But you got to get to the tournament first. My favorite thing I seen last night on X.com was a graphic of Ohio State's tournament chances. They put the graphic up there like they were kind of on the bubble. And they had all of these different things that they did, and then it had a projection of the two people that were doing these brackets, and they both just said out. It was like that's cute
tough.
that they're making a little bit of a run, but nobody still has them in the tournament. So
Not yet. Not
but
until they make
the good
some
news
noise.
about college basketball, Elliot, if you don't know, is that you're not dead until you lose your final game.
That's right.
Unless you play in a conference that doesn't do that. But.
That's right. Let's see. Spring training news. The Reds beat the Dodgers. I'm sure that'll continue in the regular season. Edwin Arroyo had a massive 2 RBI double. Candelario, he had his first hit of the spring. Graham Ashcraft, Dougie McBuckets, he shoved, going 2 innings, striking out 2. Alexis Diaz, a guy that I've openly slandered on this show because I don't think he's going to be as good as he is or as he was the past couple of years. But maybe I'm wrong. He came in for 1 inning, struck out the side.
Yeah.
TJ Antone, Buck Farmer, they also look good. Again, Reds win 5-4 against the National League All-Stars. Saquon Barkley, some NFL news. Saquon Barkley appears to be targeting the Houston Texans as his top landing spot in free agency.
Ooh.
That would be a stacked roster.
CJ and Saquon.
That would be pretty damn good.
It's got a nice little ring to it.
And the biggest news of yesterday,
Yeah. Big
Toronto
news.
FC has acquired a 2024 international roster spot in exchange for $170,000 cash in a GAM split between 2024 and 2025. Now, I didn't have any understanding of what that meant.
Yeah, I was going to say, that reminded me back when I was in school, not to go on the tangent of school
Yeah.
again, but that reminded me of school when they hand you the chapter that you're supposed to read, and you're semi-nervous while you're reading it in the middle of your entire classmates, and you're just focused on reading it, and you get done reading it, and then you ask yourself the question, what actually did I just read? That's what just happened to you. I just watched it in real time. You read that, but there was nothing a part of that you actually comprehended.
Not one part. But good news is we have somebody who does comprehend this stuff because he is the regular soccer expert. He is the FC Cincinnati King. He goes to every single game, and he's going to explain this to us. So please, Casey, explain what Toronto FC acquiring a 2024 international roster spot in exchange for $170,000 in GAM split. What does that mean?
Well, I do know this, that the Toronto fans, they were looking for some sort of striker outside of the American League, and that's what they got, I guess, is that opportunity to find a guy.
Nice. We got a super chat from Justin. Justin with the super chat said, anyone over 35 to 40 years old is a Jordan disciple. Anyone younger is I can't say that. I think it says LeBron disciple.
Correct.
End of discussion. That's true. That does seem to be true. However, the beautiful thing about the Last Dance documentary is I do think that it actually, like most documentaries are designed to do, they're persuasive in a certain way. And I think that documentary is very persuasive for Michael Jordan.
Sure. He didn't have a gambling problem. He had a competition problem. That was the big quote I took away from it. And finally, the news that's going to transition us into today's discussion. Caleb Williams will be the first combine invitee ever in the history of the league to decline a medical examination.
It's kind of wild.
Listen, we had this discussion a little bit on box lunch yesterday or Wednesday, whatever day it is. I don't know. I'm getting lost. in my
Yeah,
days,
stop bringing the days up when you don't know the days.
Yeah,
that's a big tip that I have for you.
Yeah, that's fair. I just don't
leave
have
it
that
out.
in.
Nobody cares. Nobody's
I know,
thinking, man,
I
Elliot
know.
should have brought up that it was Wednesday when he said that. You just say the other day. That saves your face.
I'm trying my best to defend Caleb Williams. I'm doing my best because it seems like the entire world that's not a scout or somebody in the NFL business, it seems like everybody outside of that, the talking heads, the fans, everybody else is just completely out on this guy. He's going to be a bust. He's a prima donna. And then there's stories like this. Why are we? I get it in terms because nothing can really go in your favor when you do one of these. If they find something wrong with you, they're not going to draft you, and then you lose your future.
Well, let's break this down.
Not doing it makes it seem like he has something to hide.
That's true too. And then you look at that, and then you look way more suspicious and more certainly like a diva. I don't like throwing that word out, but you certainly look like a diva when you do stuff like this.
I completely agree with you. The only pushback I would have is if he knows that he's going 1-1, then essentially what he could be doing is trying to make sure that really the only opinion that would matter is the doctor of which, maybe of the team specifically that he's going to go to. But other than that, yeah, I'm with you. I don't know why you would hide this. But again, it comes back to every single year we do this around the combine. I think some of it's because we have a kudos to the NFL for doing it, perhaps. Maybe they've strategically put it in this spot, and more likely than they haven't. But the NFL is relatively the only somewhat interesting news that most people care about in regards to what's going on in sports right now. And it seems like the media stretches any and every opportunity they have to talk about something, which is what we've been trying to somewhat accomplish here, if we're being completely honest. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, I don't know if there's a big deal here. Am I missing out on an opportunity to go on a rant? Am I missing out on an opportunity to try to make this a big deal and we can talk about it for the next 20 minutes? Maybe. I don't see it as that. It's just like, okay, some strategic reason as to why their agent or somebody in their circle doesn't want them to do this because of X, Y, Z. Another thing, let's not forget, and my memory's failing me right here, but Carlos Correa, right? He was the guy that failed multiple physicals.
Yep.
Has that become an issue?
No.
So I guess that's my argument, is that sometimes these doctors may see something, but should it matter? I don't know. You think it's going to mess up his draft stock?
No, it's not going to mess up his draft stock. It's just from the outside, you're not doing yourself any favors when you know you're heavily criticized right now. And again, maybe it doesn't matter to him, but I'm sure he's got a PR team trying to boost your image, trying to get people to buy your jerseys when you get drafted, right? And you do stuff like this, and it's like it seems half the country is just completely out on him. They think he's not good. They think he's causing up drama, stirring up drama. And you do something like this when you're the very first player ever to be invited to a combine and then not do a medical exemption or a medical examination. It's just strange to me. That's the type of stuff you don't want your franchise player to be doing. You want to be for the team. You want to be for your franchise. I'm not saying you have to do everything that the NFL combine directors, whoever the hell is who's leading this. You don't have to do everything, but like if you want to get if these teams want to know you're healthy before they draft you, I think that's a fair ask.
I would agree, but this isn't the first red flag that he's
No, it's
brought
not.
up.
That's the problem. That's the problem is that it's not the first red flag that he's shown, and so now all these are stacking up, and it's like, do we even want this guy? And again, I don't think it's hurting the draft stock. To answer your question, I think the Bears are still taking him with the first overall pick. I saw yesterday there's a report that Justin Fields is likely, very, very, very likely now to go to the Atlanta Falcons. So it seems like this is the plan. This is what they are going to do.
Right. Did you see the video that supposedly, there was I don't say misinterpretations. There was certain interpretations of him going to the Falcons based off the video of Justin Fields getting excited, and it sounded.
I saw that.
It kind of sounded as if someone had mentioned that he was going home, which he is from the Atlanta area, from Georgia. So maybe that is true. And if it is true, Casey said it the other day. Justin Fields could possibly make the Falcons one of the better teams in the NFC. I don't know though. Again, I don't really know if this is much of a story. I know people want to make it out to be one. The one thing I do know is the combine is every single year this happens. We find a way to make these glorified Olympics to be the end-all be-all for some certain players. Whether they run a 40 in this time, or whether they do a shuttle drill in that time, or if, I don't know, J.J. McCarthy's throwing a football in a hotel lobby and somebody videos it and he doesn't hit the guy on target 2 or 3 times in a row. Next thing you know, we got a problem. And I don't know if it's more of an internet thing or not, but it does seem like some teams every single year start to buy into this notion that these guys are better than they really are, and they forget about the years of tape that they have on them. And I'm not suggesting for a second that the RAS score is completely worthless. I know there's a guy over there on the other side of that's maybe 4 or 5 feet to my right that loves the RAS score and thinks that is an excellent opportunity to evaluate players. I guess the question I have is like, why do we try every single season, and I'm talking about the combine specifically, to act as if 0.5, 0.6 of a second, which again maybe it is a huge deal when it comes down to like, you know, positional players in regards to a 4.4 to a 4.9. I'm not naive there, but do we really care if a guy runs a 4.35 or a 4.42? Is that? I mean, I'm genuinely asking, Casey. Do you think that would make do you think that makes a difference when you go to draft somebody, that they run a 10th or maybe even a 10.5 seconds faster in the 40?
So I don't think that if it's by a 1/10 of a second, that it matters a lot in the grand scheme of things. It's the culmination of all those drills put together, right? When you compile the final RAS score, usually your top-end athletes in the NFL perform very, very well and become Pro Bowlers. That's really what the correlation is, in honesty. 80% of the Pro Bowlers this year had elite RAS scores. 80% of them. And you look at other past Pro Bowls or, you know, just selections of people with high talent skills, we're all fantastic athletes. So really you're trying to avoid drafting guys that don't have great RAS scores because you're wanting the best opportunity to have a successful pick, right? If you do that, you're limiting yourself just based off the data. So that's where it really comes into play. Now, I do think when you're talking about like maybe a fringe first and a second round guy at receiver and he runs a 4.5 instead of a 4.4, I do think people will grade him a little lower and make him a second round pick at that point. But is that really a big difference? Are we really picking needle, splitting hairs? Are we really splitting hairs over a 1/10 of a second? No, that's not going to stop someone from drafting them, but could determine where they get drafted at. That's what it really boils down to. Guys like the kid that ran the 4.78, the defensive tackle yesterday. He had to perform fantastic in the combine, or else he was going to be a day 2 guy. Now there's a chance that he can be a day 1 guy because of his profile. He's a 24-year-old. He's older, and he didn't have the best stats in college football. I think his name is Trice or something like that. But regardless, that's what it really boils down to, is like the difference between a round or two. That's really age, all it boils down to.
And I always find this interesting, even with Major League Baseball, is that when you start talking about age, as if I don't want to say as if it matters significantly one way or the other, but like, let's just say, for instance, you have a 20-year-old or a 21-year-old prospect in the NFL versus a 24-year-old prospect in the NFL. Outside of what positions? Running back, maybe. Wide receiver, maybe. But outside of those two positions, you have team control for 4 years, unless they're a first-round pick. Obviously, you have the fifth-year option. Yep. But you have 4 years of team control. Does age – I guess I don't buy into the idea that age matters as much as some might say. Like even Ellie De La Cruz, right? This notion that, well, he's only 21 years old. That's unbelievable for the Reds. It is, but is it? Would you rather have Ellie when he was 24 years old to age 20, if it's 6 years of team control, till, let's just say, 24 to 30 versus 21 to 28? Then you have the chance of losing the guy or having to sign this guy to free agency when they're actually within their prime of their career. It always feels like sometimes this notion of them being young is overblown. Like if you drafted a 23-year-old in college, it doesn't seem like, to me, it would make that big of a difference unless you're all about, I guess for lack of a better term, signing guys to a longer-term deal. But I'm not suggesting that the Bengals would never do that. They just did that with Joe Burrow, of course. But I'm just saying, like, do you think that's that big of a deal?
I do think it's a big deal in terms of how they performed in college. If the 24-year-old was not one of the best players in college football and was barely above average and you're drafting him, he's probably not going to turn out that great because he's already close to his prime. A 20-year-old that is dominating college football still has a couple years left to build up muscle, to grow most of the time. And those are also signs of, your best athletes in football. I mean, they're young. If they're dominating at the college level and they're super young, it usually translates really well to the NFL. And that's another just sign, a little factor that gets played into the combine process, into the evaluation process of these athletes. And I do think it matters somewhat. I do agree with you that in the grand scheme of things, like if you're planning on drafting a tackle, a defensive tackle, right, that's 24, and you're going to have 4 years, maybe 5 years of team control, by the time they're 28, 29, they could be either in the middle of their prime or they could be past it because they're not the best athlete at their position. Like if they're I would say above average RAS score, right? And you drafted them in the second round, you're probably only expecting them to perform at that high of a level until they're 30, and then they probably start to tail off after that. So yeah, I mean, I kind of understand what you're saying. Does it really matter in the grand scheme of things? You're probably going to let them go anyway.
There's not that many guys that get re-signed after their first contract is what I'm getting, period.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm not to be crazy, but like if T. Higgins and Jesse Bates aren't getting re-signed after their first contract's up, then what are the chances of I don't want to say nobody's going to, as I said before, Joe Burrow did, but the chances of me worrying about what they might be when they're a little bit older after I lose team control wouldn't be a decision that I would even be considering making at all. It wouldn't affect my decision if a kid was 21 or 20, 23 or 24, depending on some of the other factors. I get what you're saying. If they struggled in college, well, that's my whole point with all of this, is that I feel like the combine is an excellent opportunity for, like, and I call them BP Warriors, that's a baseball term, but like, 5 o'clock All-Stars. And what I'm trying to get at is that, yeah, you can look good when you're not playing the game because you're a great athlete. But the thing is that you actually play the game. That's the part of that. That's the actual most important part, is that you go on the field and you play the game. And there's years of tape on these guys. There's years of tape on these guys. Yet there's teams that will stretch themselves time and time again on guys that never performed or don't have good technique because of some kind of combine status that they put up, and they impress everybody, and then they wonder why, and they scratch their heads how they could never figure it out. Then that's where, again, the combine seems like an excellent opportunity for the player to fool a team. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but like you can't convince me after watching J.J. McCarthy play football at Michigan as a quarterback that he's going to have a successful NFL career, no matter what he does at the combine.
Yeah, I mean,
just because of the way he looked. Now I know some Michigan people are going to be pissed off because he won the national championship and all that at Michigan, and he had a great career there. But not one time did I turn on Michigan football and think to myself, "Damn, that dude's the difference maker."
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the quarterback position is worth it for them to go to the combine and do those drills. I don't think it really spells out anything. It can do more harm than it does good for that athlete, in all honesty. If they're a quarterback and going to the combine, if they have a bad day at the combine, it can drop you significantly. I don't think it really helps you at all. But it does help some of the athletes that are, the ones that didn't have the great stats in college. And if they end up being really, really high athletes, there's more likely of a chance that a team's going to take a risk on you because of what the data says about the Pro Bowlers.
Yoshi's a good example of what the combine can do.
Right.
But again, for these guys that play in the SEC, they play in the Big Ten, I mean, I would like to think that you're able to get pretty good evidence as to what they could or could not be in the NFL based off of film and film alone. Yeah. But obviously they do the combine. Kudos to them. It started making me think, though, when I see all of these folks that have these spreadsheets on the internet. And it always sounds like I'm anti-analytics, and I guess the more I talk, sometimes people might think that I am. It's not that I'm anti-analytics. It's just sometimes it makes my brain explode that we think that we can just sit here and put all these athletes on a spreadsheet and say, well, since they did X, Y, Z, then ultimately that comp is comparable to J.J. Watt because that's what he did. It's like, okay, well, J.J. Watt and this guy might have the same type of stats or same type of performances at the combine, but they're probably, if I had to guess, maybe two completely different football players.
Correct.
And that's the part of this, like, I would love, this is a new rule, new idea. Speaking of which, we'll go into the new segment now. I would love, this is, again, this isn't going to happen, I get it, but let's just imagine a sports world utopian society here where we could just kind of do odd, unique things for entertainment purposes and entertainment purposes mostly only. But it would be great if the NFL and the MLB especially, I don't know if the NBA has really caught on with the whole analytics stuff as much as everybody else, but I would love one franchise to be created in each of those leagues that is just ran strictly off spreadsheets. You're not allowed to do anything outside of that. You draft off of whoever has the best scores, whoever has the best metrics, and then you also in game you basically just have headsets on a well, maybe you could even find robots at this point. I don't know, but you could just put headsets on a bunch of humans. Maybe Dan Campbell is the head coach, and you just tell them what statistically speaking you should do every single decision. So if it's a 50% or higher probability of going for it on your own, 10-yard line, and that's what the numbers say, then let's do that. And then I want to find out over the course of maybe because we don't want to use small numbers. The analytical community wants big numbers. They want it long. We'll give them 5 years, and let's see where it falls. And then once and for all, we can find out exactly how much power the analytical game has. You think that's fair? We can do it in Major League Baseball, same thing.
I think that's fair. I think Major League Baseball does that anyway, if I'm going to be honest with you. I would say, 90% of decisions in professional, all sports, right? I mean, I guess NFL is a little bit different. There's still some of those football guys that go against the grain on analytics. But baseball is certainly all analytics now. All of it. If you're not
I don't agree with that.
90%? You don't think 90% of decisions are made on analytics in baseball?
Yeah.
I think it's more than 90%, and I'm being generous. That's what I think. Unless you're talking about some of the old, I don't know how much Bruce Bochy's using analytics. And he's one of the greatest to ever manage in professional baseball. But outside of him, outside of maybe Dusty Baker.
He just won a World Series.
That's what I'm saying. And he's proven that it works. If he doesn't do it, again, I don't know enough to say. He definitely uses it in some capacity.
Everybody uses it in
That's
some capacity. Yes, some.
But
I'm talking about this franchise, though, is by the book.
But every time you put in a lefty against a lefty, you're using analytics. So every team does that, right? So I think 90% of decisions, if a righty's pitching, you want to put in a lefty, you do it because of analytics. And that's where I think baseball has just been taken over by it. I'm not saying that it's completely wrong. You want you to put yourself in the best position to win. I'm just saying a lot of teams do it. And I would say 90% of decisions in baseball are made by analytics alone.
One thing I've seen in the chat that is very, very true, and I used to always believe this myself, is that you assume or you take for granted or you believe that if since somebody does something specific for a living that they're going to 100% probably be much more knowledgeable than you and be able to do the job better than you would from the outside looking in. And the truth is for that is more times yes than no, of course. But I do think, again, the older I've gotten, sometimes I take a step back and I think to myself, maybe just sometimes you don't know it all. And I sometimes think parenting made me think of that, because I think when you're young and you're a child and you're growing up and you have your parents, and you think your parents when you're younger kind of know everything in a way, like they have it all figured out. And you as you get older and older and older, you realize that quite honestly is just not the case. There's no doubt. Me as a parent, at times, I ask the question to myself: am I doing this right? I don't, like I'm trying to make the best educated decision possible, but I don't really know if I'm doing it right. Sometimes I wonder if that's the same thing that happens in front offices. I really do. I think that they get in these draft rooms, and I think in their mind they even question to themselves, like, you can't at this point. I guess is what I'm getting at. No free ads, but I'll give a few. You can't convince me that there's that many more people inside the Bengals front office that are really that more knowledgeable than a Goodberry. There's only so much you can really gain and understand from the way the league works and the dynamics of the league. And let's face it, the internet and the breadth of information that's available to us as fans has made the fan infinitely more knowledgeable and infinitely more obtainable to be able to make an opinion that might just be better than the opinion of said person that's in the job. I know that sounds crazy, and I know people will make fun of that, but I do actually believe there are times where some people that have been inside of a front office and or they've been inside of some kind of hierarchy to get to a certain position in life, they've been in that for so long that it does ultimately become a monkey see, monkey do mentality, and there's not a ton of innovation. Now, there is some at some point in certain industries, because somebody's an industry disruptor, and there's copycats, and that's a copycat league, and you hear all those types of things. But do you think that maybe the person that invented, like, the forward pass, and I know I'm getting crazy here, like, was to a certain extent, like, laughed upon by certain people within inside the business that is football? And then all of a sudden, like, you get to the point where the 3-point shot. Remember when we were young, everybody was like, you don't shoot a 3-point shot. It's a bad shot. It's a low percentage shot. And then all of a sudden, you start to realize, wow, okay, if you're able to hit this many threes and you get this many shots up in a game, it's actually better. And that's where the analytical part of this obviously comes into play, because then you have people that start arguing, well, the math's the math. You can take the opinion out, and it's strictly right there in front of your face. I obviously believe in a combination of the two, but my point to all of this is that I see fans that are always like, well, Duke Tobin, I'm going to trust him more than I trust you. Well, okay. Did he not sign Nick Scott? Did Nick Kroll? And again, I'm just pointing out things. These guys aren't perfect. I get it. But to think that these guys are like not human and they're perfect, and I'm not suggesting that someone's saying that to the T, but I'm laying it out there to say, don't fool yourself into thinking that every person that is in a powerful position knows it all. Sometimes they got there because they were just in the long game for long enough that they got that position because they were just a part of this, and I don't want to say good old boy club, but they were in the system. A la corporate America. You wonder why Sears got taken over by Amazon? It's because there was a litany of people that were in that job for so long, that was the CEO or they were on the board of Sears, that there was no innovation ever. It was just monkey see, monkey do. This is the way we're always going to do it. And you can see that throughout a ton of industries. Why is Blockbuster not Netflix? Because at some point, it just becomes status quo. And I guess that's the question I have for some of these front office folks, if you will, is that how many of them are actually industry disruptors? I don't know. Doesn't seem like there's as many as people make out to be.
I would agree with that. I also think too, like we are just now entering that new age where people that are not in that business already, like inside the NFL, guys like Goodberry, there's plenty of other guys like Votto, Brett Coleman, other analytical people that study the game, the film, break down free agents, things of that nature that are getting respect. And they're finally getting on platforms, higher platforms to speak on. I would say that it's just taking a long time for these teams to kind of realize and wake up to the reality that the internet's a great source of info, and it can help you make your decisions easier if you know where to look. Now, innovators in the game, I don't know if there really is one. I do think that we would say like the Bengals are very old school in their thought process and their thinking and how they decide to structure team deals and whatnot. Teams like the Eagles and their GM, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's more willing to make trades and do things that are outside the scope. And there's other teams like the Chargers and the Saints, Pittsburgh, that will push Cap back. That was kind of innovative at the time, but there's nothing that's really been groundbreaking, like you said. And you got to wonder when people start to look elsewhere for that talent, when they start to look for, I don't know where you go to even look for that. But
well, as crazy as this sounds, and again, I'm not suggesting that for a single second, but like we'll use the perfect example of Votch, right? Votch has been on the show. You're a big fan of Votch.
Yep.
Votch is a guy that obviously pays attention to linemen significantly in regards to the draft, right? Like he tries to make his niche lineman. And he's sitting out here and he's yelling about DeJuan Jones. And I got to be honest, I was like, oh, yeah, Votch is going to be – I'm supposed to trust Votch Lombardi, this guy on YouTube, more than all these other general managers that do this for a living, right? That's the term that everyone likes to use. They do that for a living. DeJuan Jones goes, what, fifth round?
Fourth round.
Fourth round? And honestly, DeJuan Jones looks like he might be the best lineman that the Bengals would have drafted over the last how many years?
Right. I agree.
Yet we sit here and we act like these guys can't miss. Jackson Carman, with all due respect, as soon as Jackson Carman got drafted, I'm not kidding. There was a high school coach in this area that will go unnamed because they didn't sign up for me to say this out loud. But they sent me a message and said, "I can't believe the Bengals drafted him." Now, of course, you could say that they were missing, but my point is like, I think that more times than not, we give too much credit to folks that are inside of front offices, and not enough credit for some of these people that sit around and yes, you can say whatever you want, but they sit around and they're YouTubers, but they specifically focus on specific things. I think sometimes those guys might just be more knowledgeable than the people that are in the buildings. Because if anything, you could make the case for these YouTubers, they got no one over top of them talking to them. They don't have any pressure. So they might be able to see things with a little bit of a cleaner view, right? If you feel pressure, for instance, every single day I came in here and I breathed down your neck, Casey, and I said, if these cameras glitch one more time or I have an internet outage, then you're going to walk home and you're not going to have a job tomorrow. My point is that you might probably not perform as well. You're not going to perform as well. I think that happens in these front offices more times than not. These guys are scared sometimes, and they cave in to the corporate belief system. They want to do what has always been done, because if they don't do that and they do something different, they've worked this long to get to a certain spot, and if it goes wrong and it doesn't do exactly what they think it should do, then that's an easy way for them to get let go immediately. If you do what's always been done since you started the job or since you've been in the organization, how could they possibly fire you immediately if something doesn't go right that they believe in or that they want to do? And that is the Bengals ownership, is what I'm getting at. That is Mike Brown, and that is Jerry Jones.
I think someone in the chat is saying that you're using the example of Goodberry and Votch, but they're also professionals in this business.
Well, they're not your national heads, though. They're not your ESPN guys. They're not Fox Sports. That's my point, though, is that at some point, and maybe we're there, maybe we're not there, the guys that do this professionally is what I'm saying. Professionally.
that are getting paid by a franchise that's trying to win a Super Bowl. Like, that's their actual only job.
Yeah. Employed by the team.
Employed by the team. They actually are not as intelligent as some of the people that are not employed by the team, is what I'm getting at. That are literally just quote-unquote fans is where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it's not caught up yet because and I don't think – I mean, we live on the internet is what I'm getting at. And people that watch this show live on the internet for the most part, right? And I say live on the internet, I don't mean like you have a problem. I'm saying that you are aware of the information that's available to you. There are a lot of people still – and this is no disrespect. I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say this. But there are a lot of people still that read the newspaper, watch network television, and turn on the radio, and they basically believe that is all the information that they're going to perceive. And if they were to go somewhere else, then perhaps that is not, like, valid is what I'm getting at. Unless you're wearing a suit and you're on television – and unless you're on a radio station or unless you're writing for a column for a newspaper that's been around for 100 years, then you must not be legitimate enough to have an opinion is what I'm getting at.
Now, I do.
That has to be that's completely gone at this point is what I'm saying.
I do think, like in today's world, in the year 2024, I do think that it has changed significantly over the last 10 years. Like, I would look at mock drafts on NFL.com and trust that as the source, as the people that are the professionals. Over the last 10 years, it has completely flipped. I don't even read what ESPN puts out because that shit is always wrong. It's always been wrong. It's never even close. Now, they might have inklings of ideas of what teams would like to do, but more times than not, guys like Votto, guys like Goodberry, they have a really good idea of what actually takes place inside the buildings, and they have a really good idea of where teams will go directionally, what picks are the correct picks and things of that nature. Now, I do think teams are they all suck at drafting. Otherwise, I mean, all the top players would go in the top, 50 picks. You know what I'm saying? You wouldn't have any 6th-round booms, right? Now, that to me, I think part of the reason why those, like you said, the pressure of trying to get the pick right, of what the perception of where you're taking a pick at. Like, do you remember when we picked Drew Sample in the 2nd round, how much of a just absolute like disaster that was for people around here? People thought that was crazy, that we would pick a guy in the 2nd round that was supposed to be in the 5th round. There's that type of pressure too, like.
But that's my point. That's my point, is that they won't do that. They won't do that, Casey. That's the exact point I'm making, is that if you believe in yourself and you have these guys graded at a certain spot, then you make the picks based off what you believe because you don't want to lose the guy.
Correct.
Like, everyone wanted to make fun of the Lions, I guess, right? They drafted who was the guy? Campbell? It wasn't Campbell. Somebody. It was the Patriots, I believe, right? The Rams were laughing at somebody going in the 2nd round because they had him drafted. They had him grade in the 5th round. Right. And I do think it's relatively wise if you have somebody that you love, that's a 5th round supposedly slot, drafting him in the 1st round, even though you think he's a 1st round talent, is probably a bad idea. But my point is still, you have these guys that try to make sure that they don't do anything overly outlandish. And I kind of venture back, not to take us off the subject, but I venture back to when I was in college baseball significantly, right? So to make a long story short, I used to work for an organization that we would go around and we would hold combines, basically. Fair to a certain extent, combines. And of course, I was making a living, and I have nothing bad to say about the organization. But I always laughed about this because essentially you'd have, and this is Division I talent. Like, this isn't. Not everyone was Division I talent, but my point is there was Division I head coaches or the recruiting coordinators, and they would go to these events, and they're not even playing really games, right? This isn't competition in regards to watching them play an actual real baseball game. This is strictly just a combine style setting, and every time there would always be a kid that came in that couldn't throw strikes, looked raw as can be, But boy, if he threw 90-plus miles an hour, he was going to get a Division I scholarship. And I just thought to myself, these guys are doing nothing but groupthink. This is pure groupthink that I'm watching right now. Every single one of these colleges, some of these colleges wouldn't offer, and I know this for a fact, they would not offer a scholarship to a kid that they loved because that kid didn't have another Division I scholarship at his disposal at the time. The question would ultimately be, what offers does that kid have? I like that kid. Well, he's got some Division II offers. Does he have any D1? No offer. Okay, well, they'll sit around, and I've seen it time and time again, as soon as somebody else offers it, the Division I team offers a scholarship, the kid will have 12 offers in the next 2 days. Because that's what happens when you work inside of a corporation that doesn't have free think. It's a group mentality, and that happens in the NFL. 100% happens in the NFL. I guess my question is this is the ultimate question of the day, is when will Goodberry and Votto and all these guys be hired as outside contractors and just say, hey, we want your opinion?
Well, they might already be that, though.
I don't think that they do.
I don't think they are.
I think that they have this ego about them that they think they're smarter than these Goodberries and Votches, and it turns out that maybe the Jackson Carmens of the world and the second round picks aren't the actual play. I'm picking on the Bengals as an example, but there's many other examples.
To be fair to like guys like Goodberry, I do think he makes like I don't know if he still does this, but he has like a whole draft guide. Like he puts in like a lot of effort into making like a top 100 list and reasons why, traits, athleticism, scores, things of that nature that he does. I don't know if Votto does the same thing, but a lot of those guys do it for free. It's online. Like, that's the thing. They don't have to pay for it. You could just watch Votto. You could just watch Goodberry and get that info right then and there. And that's what's crazy to me is, like, I feel like there's a lot of people on the internet, just as an example, that are very high on DeJuan Jones, yet, you know, whatever happened in his one-on-one interviews, the talk about him wanting to really be a basketball player, I don't know why that and the weight thing.
Because the combine gets overblown and we want to make bigger deals out of things, and then it ends up affecting your overall draftability, which shouldn't make a damn bit of difference. Right. What about Laramie Tunsil?
Right.
Do you not think other people in the draft ever smoked some marijuana? I mean, I'm being honest. I know that clip it up, I don't give a damn. But let's be honest. Get your head out of the sand, man. Do you really think to yourself that all these kids that you're drafting, out of all the backgrounds they come from, not a single one of them ever put a gas mask on? I'm just saying, your job is to draft the best football players possible. I don't know. Or you can go try to find choir boys.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't know what we were arguing just then. I don't.
Well, it's March 1st, brother.
I know, but I kind of lost it there. Yeah, I hire Votto. I'm all for it. Votto, by the way, he believes Joe Burrow's legacy is cemented on the back of Evan McPherson. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm sure Trace agrees with him.
I'm not doing this. Why are we trying to throw me under the bus to all the loyal and lovely people that watch this show that obviously care significantly about the Cincinnati Bengals? And it seems as if every time this gets brought up, it is. Can
you say something nice about Joe Burrow? I think that's what everybody wants.
I think that Joe Burrow is one of the best competitors that the Bengals have ever had, if not. And again, I've not watched the Bengals. People are going to maybe take this the wrong way, but I genuinely think that Joe Burrow, if the game was on the line, in the NFL, there's not many other guys I'd want in the NFL outside of Joe Burrow.
Okay.
Maybe if any.
Nice.
Maybe if any.
That was
to be
nice.
honest.
That was very nice.
It was starting off really poorly. It started off, he's one of the best competitors. Like, what does that mean?
It means you compete at a high level, nonstop.
The Bengals got him.
Now, Trace, this is your show, but I would recommend we do the ads real quick so you can take.
So
you can take a little breather before our big interview with Rick. So, Casey, let's do some ads if that's okay with you.
Is that okay, boss?
Sure, yeah. I mean, why not? I think that's not a bad idea.
Rick
Rick Broering is coming on the show at 11 o'clock. We're going to talk college basketball.
We didn't get to
Elliot wants me to talk about Xavier hoops, and certainly we'll talk a little bit about Xavier hoops.
Yeah, and we got to get.
I did see Xavier's NIL collective is off to a roaring start. That's good. Good for that program. Of course, it wouldn't be a day without Reed Mouse trying to troll everybody.
Yeah, Reed's just.
So I don't know if you've seen that or not, but if you've not been on the world that is X.com, Reed Mouse is out here trying to troll his own fan base's community by suggesting that he was excited about the NIL, asking everybody how he supports it, and then he quote tweets a guy that tries to give him some real advice with him holding the Cincy light in his hand at the supermarket and saying, "Glad to do my part." And he knows exactly what he's doing, by the way. Reed does. And my favorite thing about that was I wish I could have a video camera of Reed, similar to how those influencers get caught sometimes when they're doing their stupid stuff in the middle of supermarkets, or they're promoting something. You know, they put on this brave face for a minute, and then all of a sudden the camera turns off, and then they just like go back to normal life. 100% what happened to Reed Mouse. Reed Mouse picks up the Cincy light thing, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take a picture." Takes a picture. Literally, I would put my entire life savings that Reed Mouse would have put that Cincy Light 12-pack that he had in his hand. He put that back on the shelf within 10 seconds of him hitting end on that video. I didn't see any footage of this at all, but I would be willing to bet my entire life savings that's exactly what happened.
I don't doubt it.
But ad reads. We do have our loyal folks
Casey.
that support our show. Rick Broering is going to come on right after. Well, obviously he's got to be here first, but Casey's going to do some ad reads. We're going to talk college basketball right after that. And then we'll get into maybe our top snacks for the road trip and what is to come next week while we're gone, and where this show ultimately will be held at. So, without further is what they want me to say.
Farther ado.
But without farther ado is the way that I like to say it, and it's easier to say, so that's the way I'm going to say it, even though it might make me sound very uneducated, which I am. So without further ado, Casey, go ahead and take over.
Well, I'm going to try to do this as quick as I can because Rick is waiting in the wings. So the Bengals report and the Bearcat report is brought to you by Encore Technologies. Encore Technologies provides IT solutions for a data-centered world with the suite of services from mobile computing to desktop to data center, supporting both centralized and work-from-home computing modules to improve efficiency and
productivity.
That's right. The path to innovation begins right here. Visit encore.tech. And let me tell you about this lovely bottle of water right here. Pawnee Water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio, uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result is a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com to see where you can buy this great tasting water. Get your coffee from UDF, swish it down with some Pawnee Water, and get your technology solutions from Encore.tech. Now let me
there we go.
Check them in real quick.
All right, there we go. Rick Broering is going to get some sound checks here, and we'll bring him on the show in just a moment. Steve pointed out something in the chat that I wanted to bring up that I genuinely think is maybe the best point there is to be made about Joe Burrow. And if I were to say something nice about him, it is that he did change the culture for the Cincinnati Bengals. There was this notion of 100%. What the Bengals used to be. There was this in fact, we heard the national pundits suggesting there, and again, maybe it was because it was a slow media cycle, and I don't know, some would say maybe like right around March 1st every year, and they wanted to push out this narrative that Joe Burrow needed to not go to the Cincinnati Bengals, even though they've had successful quarterbacks in years prior, which didn't make a whole lot of sense. Andy Dalton didn't have a bad career. Carson Palmer, not a bad career, but yet they were suggesting that Joe Burrow shouldn't go to the Bengals. Well, he did go to the Bengals, obviously, and I think if I were to say anything, maybe the nicest thing to say is that he changed the entire culture. So that's the nicest thing I can say about Joe Burrow.
That's all we want. We just want you to respect him.
Oh, I respect him significantly. I just think that he's had a great defense, and Evan McPherson's a really damn good kicker, and that should at least be a part of the conversation.
Last year's defense
That's all.
was great.
That's all. All right. Speaking of end of seasons here, we are towards the end of college basketball. Rick Broering is now joining the show. Rick, thank you for coming on here first and foremost, and giving us something positive to talk about around the local parts that is college basketball. However, when I say that, it does bring a sour taste in my mouth because ultimately there's not a whole lot of tournament excitement this time of year for the local team. So it really, I guess we got to muster up the college basketball enthusiast around here to get excited for this March go-around. How exciting is it for you as a Xavier guy when even they're outside the tournament? Does that affect your excitement that it's March today in any capacity?
Well, first, let me correct you, Trace. There is a local team that has March aspirations. NKU
well, two of them. 3 of them, maybe.
Yeah, and NKU is very much playing well right now and playing their best basketball at the right time of year as we lead into the Horizon League tournament. They've won this tournament 2 years since Darren Horn has been here already, his first year, and then last season they won and they went to the tournament and played against Houston. The first year obviously was the COVID year where they didn't get the opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. So I would tell you, first of all, NKU is very much still alive in that regard. And as for the Xavier side of things, covering the team, honestly, I feel like this sport is so much changing to be more like the NBA and the NFL, where free agency, or in this case, the transfer portal, is really all the rage. And it's almost as popular, if not more popular, than the actual games that are being played. So from my perspective, covering the team, we're gearing up for a big March and April with the transfer portal.
That we are. The other 2 teams that I don't want to omit here to try to make sure I save a little bit of face. I was mostly talking about clearly the 2 big brands that are associated with our city. But I would argue as well, obviously the Dayton Flyers, maybe they're considered local or not. I would at least around Hamilton, it's almost the same distance. So to be fair, the Dayton Flyers are having a great season. And Wright State, I guess you just stick on the Horizon League here for a second. I know you're shaking your head as a Northern Kentucky guy here. How many teams in the Horizon do you think actually have a chance to win the tournament, in your opinion?
Honestly, that's a great point, Trace. I'd say 8 teams are legitimately dangerous in the tournament. Now, you probably look at it and say, okay, there's 3, 4, 5 that maybe have the best chance. But honestly, when you go down to about that 7th or 8th team, we're talking in this case Purdue, Fort Wayne, Cleveland State, those 2 teams can beat pretty much anyone in this conference on any given night. And with it being a 1-bid league, you're playing in the Horizon League tournament where it's a 1-game scenario. I think we're due for some craziness with this conference tournament. I think it's going to be pretty wild next week when it starts.
So 8 teams? 8 teams. You think
I know it sounds crazy, but Trace, we're talking about the teams right now that are sitting in 7th and 8th are both 10-9.
Right.
The teams that are sitting in like Wright State and NKU are currently tied for 4th and 5th. They're 12-7 right now. So there's not like a huge separation between those teams. And if you don't think Wright State and NKU are dangerous to win this conference tournament, then you're just not paying attention to the conference right now. So like there's just not a lot of separation in this league outside of IUPUI, Detroit Mercy, and maybe Robert Morris at the bottom.
All right, fair enough. In regards to sticking on here before we transition to Xavier and maybe UC, we've talked plenty about UC on this show.
They're coming.
That's a good one. And they're pissed. I don't know if you know Rick, but they're also pissed.
Rick,
so
how pissed are you? Because when I watch those press conferences after I watch a UC game, we got the right guys. I love them, and that's not just a line for the media. And I'm really pissed. How pissed are you when you watch them?
I tend not to get very pissed off while watching college basketball. I quite enjoy it, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise. Yeah. But I know one man in this town who is pissed quite regularly right now, and that is Wes Miller. He is pissed.
Yes, he is. There's no doubt about it. And I think that, unfortunately for him, that's a shtick that's going to be hard to get rid of in the near future because, if anything, it's just funny. It is funny. So we can all laugh about it.
Richard Skinner and I were talking about this yesterday, Trace. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Like, is it unreasonable to think as a college basketball coach that maybe you could just get in front of a microphone and not have to say something cute or catchy, or like just say what's going on? Like, yeah, we played hard tonight. We didn't score enough to win. Houston's a really good team. I think that would be enough, personally. I think people know what UC's dealing with. They're in their first year in the Big 12. I don't think people are really against Wes Miller too much right now, but he doesn't help himself sometimes when everything has to be a silly soundbite like that.
Yeah, I think some of that's the competitor in him. Clearly, you get a microphone in some people's faces right after competition. They might say some things they don't mean to say, but my opinion would be Maybe he's too proud to say it, but he could have just got in front of the mic and just said, "Hey, listen, Houston's a better team than we are. They got better players. They're in a better spot. They've had a longer run of success than we've had here, and that's what we're aspiring to be. So, if anything, just know that within our program, we're going to try to get to where they're at, and that's going to take a lot of hard work, but we're willing to do it. I think if you came from that train of thought and you left it at that, everybody would be like, okay, that seems like a reasonable person to say those things. It's almost like he's trying to continue to kind of let the fan base know that he's just as upset as they are that they're not having the success maybe. But you can only do that so many times before it just becomes kind of a funny thing, and I think that's where we're at now. Okay, sticking on the local, I guess, other side of the aisle, another team in town, Xavier, who probably hasn't had the season they would like. You could point to maybe some excuses, certainly having two big players out at the beginning of the season and then not gaining one of those guys back as you might thought that you were going to throughout that season. Sean Miller said something that I found interesting that hasn't come true. I want to get your take on it. Is he had mentioned that at the beginning of the season that he felt like they weren't going to be the same team they were at the beginning as they would be at the end, and he thinks this team has a really good chance of getting better. That hasn't been the case. What do you think the main reason for that has been?
Well, it's a classic case of they were coming and they didn't come, Trace, clearly. I mean, that's why you don't say these things, right? No, I mean, in all seriousness, I think the biggest issue with them was the front court. The talent just wasn't there at all, and it put so much pressure on this backcourt. And I think Desmond Claude and Davion McKnight and Quincy Oliveri are a good backcourt, but the Big East is filled with good backcourts that also have good front courts helping them. They have no help from the front court. And quite honestly, like I think, Desmond Claude maybe wasn't quite as far along as they had hoped he was before the season started, and he didn't quite make the jump. He's a good player, but he's not a star-level player in the Big East just yet. And I think Davion McKnight took a little while to come on this season, but he's playing pretty good basketball now. And Quincy Oliveri has been great for most of the year. So really, when I look at what went wrong this year, it's pretty clearly the front court just isn't nearly talented enough to compete at the Big East level.
All right, you mentioned in the Horizon League there was 8 teams that you think have a chance to win that league. Let's shift that over to the Big East. Do you think that Xavier, if you were to try to put your rose-colored glasses on for just a second, do you think that Xavier stands any chance in the world of shocking the world, if you want to call it that, and making a run in the tournament and getting themselves in a position to win the league?
I don't. Not at all. I mean, UConn's in there. So that's going to be hard for everyone in the Big East, not named UConn, to beat them. But then even after that, Creighton and Marquette both just looked like nightmare matchups for this year when they played against them. Those two teams have a lot to play for. I think they're ramping up this time of year. And let's face it, Xavier's kind of playing out the string right now. I mean, Sean Miller's been mixing up his lineups, playing freshmen that he hasn't used for most of the year, a lot of minutes the last couple of games. So I don't think Xavier's a team headed in the direction of ready to pull off a miracle run here, and they just haven't been nearly consistent enough this year to show that they could win 3 or 4 games in a row against quality competition.
All right, we want to have you back here as maybe we get closer to the tournament and the brackets get released, but some unfair things I'm going to ask you to do here. I'm going to name a team. I want you to give me a thought on kind of where you stand with the tournament. Some of these teams are perhaps they have narratives to them, or the public perceives them in a certain way. I'll start with Purdue. Purdue, obviously a team last year loses to a 16 seed. They have pretty much virtually everybody come back. Some people think Edey's an unbelievable player. Some people think that he's just basically tall, and if he gets pushed around a little bit, he's not the player that everyone perceives him to be. What is your expectations for this Purdue team in the tournament?
So I think they are good enough to be a Final Four team, clearly. I mean, they're one of the best teams in college basketball, and Zach Edey is incredible. He is just big, and that's plenty when you're 7'4" and 270 pounds or whatever he is, but he's also a good basketball player to go with that, and I don't think he is the issue or he is what concerns me with them. But Trace, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have concerns about them getting upset again, just because they have guards that aren't as dynamic and aren't as physically imposing. They're smaller, they're less athletic, they're very good college basketball players, and they give them a chance to win pretty much any game, but you're always going to be susceptible to running into that team that has 6'4", 6'5" athletic guards that are playing better than yours are and are just more talented, more dynamic athletes. And I think that's what really scares me most with Purdue.
All right, and then going down to a team that's relatively close by, people either usually love these folks or they hate them, depending on their fandom and where it lies. Is Kentucky. Kentucky's obviously a team that at some points in this season looks as if maybe they're the best team in the country, and then you watch them the very next night almost, and you scratch your head and you wonder what happened to the team that we had just watched before. It seems like Calipari and the fan base are having their annual sparring match of the season. What's your thought process here as you look at Kentucky when they get themselves announced on Selection Sunday?
I have no idea what to think about this Kentucky team right now. Just a few weeks, really 2 weeks ago, I came out and declared, I'm like, all right, I've lost all faith in this team as a national title contender. They're dangerous because they can score a ton of points, but they're not a team to be taken seriously in March. They're not a team that can put 6 wins in a row together to make a run through the NCAA tournament. But then all of a sudden, the last 2 weeks, they've been really good again. And you do have to give them one thing, and that's a lot of different guys have been in and out of the lineup for them. Over the last 2 weeks, they've finally got their full roster back almost. They're still missing one guy. But that cohesiveness, I think, has started to show on the defensive end, and that's led to them playing better basketball. So maybe I'm going to soften my stance again and accept UK as a real threat in the NCAA tournament. They're scary as hell because they can really score.
All right, and then finally here, before we let you go, who's your favorite? If you have a team that you've seen all year long, you think they're consistent enough, if you had to put maybe perhaps a paycheck or two, of course responsibly, Rick. We do everything responsibly around here. If you had to put a paycheck or two on somebody that was going to win the national championship, are you picking UConn? And if it is UConn, why?
UConn is clearly the best team to me. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think they're better than last year. I think Klingon is a more imposing presence at the center position than they had last year with Sonogo. And I think the Cam Spencer addition through the transfer portal has been a tremendous one for them. He's really made a huge difference on both ends of the floor. So UConn would probably be the sensible pick. But if I'm going with another kind of, I don't know if you'd call them a dark horse because they're right at the top of the country
value.
too. But another team that I like a little bit is Houston. They're just so good every year. They're so tough physically that they're never out of the game. They're always giving themselves a chance, and they keep the score close. They're just a little bit different from the way some of the other teams are playing this year that are at the top. So I think Houston could really give some teams trouble, and I think Kelvin Sampson is one of the best coaches still going right now.
All right, I have no more questions, but your good friend Elliot Rearing, the basketball wizard that he is, I know that he is dying to ask a few questions. So I'm wondering if these are going to be serious or unserious, but we get to find out together.
Well, Elliot's a very serious journalist, so
very serious, credentialed member of the media. Rick, some would say at least I would say 100% of people would say that. The producer who was running the keys there for you and for Mr. Kelch last season, I was the reason that NKU went on that run. Would you say that you guys still owe me? I guess a two-part question there. Do I still get a ring from last year, the Horizon League championship ring? And then B, should I come back this year to produce to help ensure another magical run?
There you go.
Where's mine? I produced those games for $10 an hour, Rick, and I got no ring for it. No ring.
This is yours. This is yours. I've just been waiting for us to meet up and get some drinks so I could give that to you. That is your ring right there.
Please, my goodness. And also, okay, so that's good. You can mail. I'll send you my address later today.
Thanks.
Second question for you. At the beginning of this basketball season, I think it was our good friend Paul hosting the show before he quit. But he was hosting the show, and I asked you a serious question: who would win in a one-on-one match, Dan Skillings or Des Claude? Now, this year, if you had to bet right now at this moment, the end we've played a majority of this season, who would win right now in a one-on-one? That guy that Xavier has, Novak Djokovic, or Aziz? Who would win in a one-on-one match?
Oh man, God, how long are we giving? Are we putting a time limit on that game? There might be 3 or 4 hours before we get to 10 in that thing. Not a lot of offense in that matchup right now.
You have to pick somebody though. You have to pick. I would go with Novak Djokovic. Poor Aziz, man. He would need somebody to lob it up to him, and I can only watch those failed lob attempts for so long before I want to pull my hair out of my head. But my answer, to answer my own question that I asked I would answer Novak Djokovic. How would you answer it?
Elliot, are there any other questions that you would like to answer that I could ask you maybe? instead of I could set you up instead. I do this pretty well myself.
I'm trying to think of a couple. I don't know any off the top of my head.
I actually agree with your opinion. I think Aziz is probably the better player right now, but in a one-on-one game, it's like you said, who's going to give him the ball? How is he going to get to his spot? Lazar will bank in a couple jumpers at some point, I think, accidentally. So
yeah, that's fair. And I have one last question. It looks like the Diebler wagon at Ohio State is going to be blocking Sean Miller from taking that job. Are you pumped about that?
Oh, is that how you see it happening?
Yeah, that's it. Diebler.
I'm sure Xavier fans are happy to hear you say that, Elliot. I don't know if I agree with you there. I think we got a long way to go with that Ohio State job search still, but I can't see Diebler getting it. I'll be honest.
All right, that's fair. Rick, I'll see you in the NIT, and go NKU. If they win again, I get my second ring, and that's on Rick Broering. If again, I will tweet that video out. I will tweet that clip out if they win another Horizon League championship. So
who are we saying is going to be in the NIT, Elliot?
Xavier and UC, both teams. NIT.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't know if they're going to accept that bid, but we'll see. They've got a lot of work to do in the transfer portal.
Why would Xavier not accept that bid? Aren't they champions?
Well, like
champions.
I said, they've got to rebuild their roster, Elliot. It kind of sets you back to be traveling to New York or Indy this year, I guess, for the NIT.
It's about wins and losses, Rick. Are you trying to win the season or are you trying to lose it? And if you get to the NIT, you have a good chance to win it. I know Wes Miller. Could you imagine a pissed Wes Miller in the NIT? You don't want to see that. He's pissed, and you don't want to see it.
Maybe that's what he meant when he said they're coming. Maybe he was referring to everyone that's going to be in the NIT field. Yeah. Like, you don't want to see us in the NIT. We're going to be a problem.
Yeah, or the CBI, whatever one they give us. All right, thank you, Rick. You're a legend and a scholar and handsome.
I'm not sure if that's how the saying goes, but hey, I really appreciate you guys having me on. I love the show, as you know, and keep doing what you guys do.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, Rick, we appreciate it, and we'll hope to have you back here right before tournament time.
Thanks. I'd love to do it.
All right. Elliot, nothing made me laugh more than when you sat there and you asked my man a question, and you proceeded to then answer said question faster than he could ever even possibly mutter anything out of his mouth. You said, "Who do you think's going to win in a one-on-one battle?" I'll tell you who I think's going to win. And you then proceeded to give a 2.5-minute answer. That was the best journalistic thing I've ever seen happen. That's why you're a big J.
I am a big J, and people will make a joke about that Elliot, you're not a very serious journalist. You take one look at that interview that I just conducted there, and you tell me I'm not a serious journalist. I am the biggest J there has ever been. I will go into any media room, and I will light that place up. I am an electric factory, as they say. I'm not concerned about that. But thank you, Rick, for coming on. He is a ball knower.
He is a ball knower.
Some would say I'm not, but that's okay. That's okay. That's why we ask the professionals these questions.
That is true. Okay. For those that don't know, you've probably been living somewhat under a rock, and I don't mean to keep belaboring a point or beat a dead horse or whatever other cliche terms that I could come up with to make some of the crowd that loves the cliches that I use on a day in, day out basis happy. But we are obviously going on a road trip starting next Monday. The show will go on, as they say. Reed Mouse will be here hosting this show, and Casey McAllister will be producing. And my guess is that when we leave, me and Elliot leave, that the show will run completely smooth. It will run perfect. The last time I did leave, though, I must say, Casey, the last time I did, and Elliot, and Reed, and maybe even Tom, the last time I left, I went on vacation. First day on vacation. First day that me and Sean weren't in the office. No show. Internet went out.
It did.
Never happened. Never has happened ever. Not one time in the 2 years that I've been here have we not been able to at least get a show off the ground. So I'm just asking the question. What funny business are we going to be doing this?
What sort of thing are you implying
Can we be serious for a second?
We've been serious this whole time.
We had serious internet issues for the better part of 3 months. 3 months. And it all came together for that 1 week when it was -7 degrees outside.
Yeah, these boys were in the Bahamas soaking up the sun while we were in -7 weather.
On some boat casino winning millions while we're over here in those terrible leather chairs that Sean won't replace because there's more comfortable ones outside. But I'm not going to blame anybody. I'm not here to blame. But again, Wi-Fi was a serious problem, which Casey tried to fix it. We sat here for a half hour. We were working on a tight clock. So
I bet you were working hard.
I made the I'm a hard worker. That's what they say. I made the executive call. We are going to pre-tape it and then post it later. I think that was the best solution. Would you say that's not a good solution?
And that solution was very hard to do because we did not have any sort of like USBs. We had to go out and buy a thumbstick, a thumb drive to put the show on. Then I had to go home and post it because there's no internet here. It was a whole ordeal.
Can we talk about how you guys don't call a flash drive the right name? It's a flash drive. What do you call it? You call it something else too. You both call it two different things.
So the only reason I called it a thumbstick is because he calls it a thumbstick.
No, I've never called it a thumbstick.
You've never called it a flash drive.
I've called it a thumb drive.
Yeah, thumb drive.
I don't call them thumbsticks. Flash drive. I call it a flash drive. Were you guys old enough to know what floppy disks are?
Yes.
I know what they are.
Yeah.
Did you have to use them?
When I was like,
I've never
very
used a
little,
floppy disk.
yeah.
What'd you just say?
I've never. I've never used a floppy disk. I've never used a floppy disk.
Yeah, I bet you haven't. Wow, that was a good one. That's going to be the best clip maybe of all time right there.
Cut it, Casey.
There's no. In fact, I think Casey forgot to hit the dump button.
No one clipped that.
Would you know anything about that?
Nobody's allowed to
Would
clip
you know
it.
anything about dump buttons, Elliot?
I was not the one responsible for that. I was not the one who didn't dump whatever that guy's name was. Bob Huggins. I forgot his name. Bob Huggins. That was not me. That was not me. I'll make it very clear. I'm not going to name who it was, but it wasn't me. And I want that on the record.
It's on the record. Elliot Rearing was not the reason why the dump button wasn't hit for Huggy Bear. Is that good enough for you?
That's good enough for me. Can we skipped the new ideas. I'd like to run through that.
Sure. So we have this notion of things that we could do to help create maybe a more fun, entertaining brand of sport. So here's some unique ideas that we came up with 4 minutes before the show started on what it is exactly that we'd like to see in some of these sports, just from an exhibition standpoint that would make them more entertaining, perhaps. What's your favorite one that you have over there, Elliot?
Okay, so the
number one. I want your best one right off the rip.
Number one,
your
soccer needs to feature 2 balls.
Soccer.
So this is a rule.
2 balls.
This is a rule that should be implemented.
Something with you today with
What?
Where's your mind? Where is your mind at?
Exactly.
Be careful, please.
No, I'm asking a serious question. Is your mind right over there or not?
It's never been sharper.
Okay.
I've never been sharper. So this is one that I think
Someone
would
disagree with
eliminate that nonsensical 0-0 ties that we see every night. You have 2 soccer balls out there, one on each half. They're going across the field. You can score 2 goals at once if you play your cards right. I think that would really help the sport.
Okay.
My second one, baseball, bring aluminum bats. You keep the home run fences the same. Hell, I would even bring them shorter in. I'd bring them in. And then you bring the aluminum bats. Obviously, nobody can sit out in the bleachers because they will get drilled, and it probably would be serious injury. So you take everybody out of the outfield bleachers,
right?
Bring them around, and we just have an old-fashioned fireworks show with these home runs.
Okay.
That would make baseball really fun. Golf. Each golfer gets 1 gimme per weekend. They get to use it whenever they want. It could be a drive. It could be a shank. Whatever they want. It could be a bad putt. Whenever you want to use a gimme, you get a gimme in professional golf. Speaking
of shanks, shout out Anthony Kim. He's back.
He is
playing
back.
professional golf with Liv. Kudos to him, though. I think he had some dark moments in his life that I think that ultimately he stepped away from the game of golf for, and was gone for a decade, and has kind of. This is a relatively serious thing, but he found a wife that kind of helped him get back on the straightened path, and has a child now. And this is his first step. This weekend was his first step back into competitive golf. For those that don't know, Anthony Kim was a standout, excellent, high-level player, played on a Ryder Cup, and like I said, was gone for the game of golf for about a decade, a little longer than a decade, and found himself now plays for Liv. So it's not super high pressure, and it's not what I would consider, something that he's going to have to grind at for a long time to get back to a position where he's going to be able to have a platform to play in front of because he's playing for Liv. So that is an actual perfect opportunity for him. And he did hit a shank, though, I must admit. He did hit a shank, just a hosel rocket straight to the right today, which made me think of him. So shout out to him. But kudos for him for getting back. I'm not going to be the one. I think some people were trying to dunk on him today or make fun of the fact that he hit a ball like that. And, I mean, what's the point? Kudos for the guy for bouncing back, man.
I don't remember that guy.
We're all humans.
I don't remember his story or anything about him. I knew that made national news. I just never watched him. I never heard of him.
Well, he wasn't around when you were old enough to really understand who he was. But could you imagine, like, what's a good analogy for you? It would almost be like, I don't know, maybe Jordan Spieth's probably not the right analogy because he's won some majors, but someone like that caliber where, maybe Ricky Fowler after his first couple years on tour decides like he's done. Never came back ever again.
Really? All right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Some other rules I had written down here. We can get to some of yours maybe. I'm sorry.
I have one.
No, well, real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
In basketball, at any point during the game, the opposing team can select the worst free throw shooter. So if you needed him to miss 2 free throws at the end of the game, you get to send the worst guy up there, no matter who you foul.
So the only pushback I have with that, and I even thought about this the other day, like, should you be rewarded in basketball for doing something that you're otherwise not supposed to do? Now, I know why it's done, and it's become part of the game, and it makes it exciting at the end, because if you didn't have fouling at the end of the game, then the game's virtually over, right? Unless you can force turnovers, and the chances of that happening seem to be, not very high, more likely than not, to get yourself back in the game. But it seems like you shouldn't be rewarded for doing, like I said, a negative thing. Yet that's what happens in basketball for the 1-and-1s. I've actually adopted, and I like the idea that the women's game has adopted, which is you basically have quarters, and there are no 1-and-1s anymore, and you go to the double bonus immediately after what is it? How many fouls? Off the top of my head, I want to say it's 5 fouls per quarter.
Correct.
And then they go to double bonus, essentially.
Yeah.
Do you like halves in college basketball, or would you prefer them to go to quarters?
I think halves. I think I'm starting to like halves. Maybe if anything, just for the tradition that it.
I think it's just a nostalgia thing.
Yeah, I think maybe it's that. I think quarters are probably the right play, but I do think college basketball having halves makes it fun. I enjoy it. I guess it is purely nostalgia.
Okay. Yeah, I have a goofy one that I think would be fun. It would make football like you could never not pay attention.
Yeah.
What's the only time in a football game where you're just kind of you're checked out? What do you think that would be? Like one instance in a football game where you know that there's really nothing fun that's about to happen, more likely than not.
Halftime.
Good answer. But I would argue that it's kickoffs. We've gotten to where these kickers now, they just blast the ball through the back of the end zone. If that's the case, then what I suggest is that we move the ball back 5 yards from where they traditionally kick it now, and that if they want to go for it, they could, like I said, instead of kicking off where they normally do, they have the ability to go for the 1 point, and they can push the ball back 5 yards, and if they make it, they get another point. We're going to call it the extra point. And then, therefore, also if they also maybe mishit it or something along those lines, then there's returns back in the NFL again, which I know that goes against player safety, but hey, since when did the NFL actually really care about player safety? They're all about entertainment. They just want to put out the facade that they care about player safety. I don't know if I believe that, but that's what I'm going with, at least. Could you imagine?
I could not imagine.
We want to make the kickers more important. I want to be able to say that Evan McPherson wins more games than he already does. You don't seem to be vibing with that. Okay.
The only reason I'm not is because
idea.
there's a war going on in the chat right now.
Yeah, there's a brutal war going on.
And we can't discuss it because you're using words that I can't say here. But if you want to take a look at that real quick, yeah, I think that's a great rule, Trace. I think that would be a fun one.
I think it would solve two things, the dead parts of football games, and it would make it more entertaining in the long run. I mean, it also makes kicking like you have to figure that out. Like, it makes it important to know what that you have a good solid kicker, that you can score extra points if you need to. So I agree with that. One of my rules I would change, and it goes for all professional sports leagues, is relegation.
Relegation's awesome. That's the one thing soccer.
Tanking.
That's the one thing soccer brings that honestly most sports should do.
No more tanking, and that means you have to have lower leagues like the XFL and the G leagues. But hey, no more of that nonsense where you're just gonna bench your guys halfway through an NBA game. No more of that nonsense where you're gonna bench Russell Wilson because of cap issues. Like that just no. We're not doing that. Relegation needs to be a thing.
The chat's been lost. We've lost. This is the first day I've been here where it's gone. We've just lost it. That's the end.
Yeah,
of the
it
chat.
almost seems like this is the time of the show where we start to sing some love songs together. We try to bring the vibes up, make everybody feel a little bit better about themselves. Hey, I do want to remind everybody, we talk about sports here. I mean, it's not really heavy-hitting topics all that often. Now, I do think that there's certainly some passion that can go around from time to time in regards to what we believe within said sports, but it is sports. It's the what would we call that? It's the toy aisle. We're the toy aisle in a supermarket. That's what we talk about every day.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
I don't know. All right. Speaking of fair, we are. This is the all-time transition in chatter about basically off the bench history. Speaking of fair, I have some pretty fair ideas of what a good snack is when you walk into a gas station. We've started to put this list together here on the road trip before we end the show today, and I seen behind the scenes. You know, you peek behind the curtain of what other people's answers are on off the bench inside the notes that we have. And I got to be honest, Elliot's list and my list are two completely different things. I also got made fun of for some things that are on my list. And my number one thing when I walk into a gas station, of course, if the financials are right, you know, if I just got a fresh paycheck and I'm feeling good about myself and I know that, you know what, I got some money to burn, I can spend it, I'm going and I'm finding some beef jerky, okay? That is the number one snack that you can get inside of a gas station. And you had the audacity to tell me that was the worst pick?
Not worse. It was offensive.
Offensive. Do you
That's-
actually believe this, Elliot?
When you're in a road trip in a car, now this car will be a little bit different because it's a van and it's a wider space, so smells won't be kept into one little area. If you're in a regular car and somebody brings in beef jerky, that will stink up the entire car. That's going to stink up the entire car. I think it's absolutely preposterous if you do it. Absolutely preposterous. If you're in a road trip with four guys, you're coming in the car, and one guy brings beef jerky, how am I supposed to smell the rest of the time I'm there? Casey, can you answer that? Because I'm trying to make it.
It's not an offensive smell.
It is a bad smell.
No,
it is a
it's
bad
not.
smell.
It's
Poll
not.
chat poll question of the day is: does beef jerky have a terrible smell? And the answer is yes, it does. You can't do it. You can eat it, but you can't do it in the car on the road trip unless all the windows are down.
Well, first, let me end the initial chat poll question of the day. 64% of you said no, do not do a Chatterbox FC. So
Damn, I thought that was going to be our breadwinner, but.
You're not. I mean, that's so
just
ridiculous.
so uncalled for.
That you don't need to do that, Elliot. Okay,
What?
You know what? Reed always
We're
brings
talking
this
about
up.
beef jerky.
You don't need to punch down. I heard what you just said. You didn't need to. You needed to throw in the extra jab there that you thought that was going to be the breadwinner.
that was so uncalled for.
Yeah, I mean, just a tough day for you, Elliot. Today, tough day.
It's not a tough day for me.
Yeah, it is.
I thought
You're going to be on the wrong take of this. You had a little slip up there earlier in the show. That was an interesting take.
that clip will never see the light of day.
Oh, it will. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I do think that you're going to be here. You're going to make an embarrassment of yourself.
I'm not, because here's the thing, and nobody who's ever eaten beef jerky can deny this. It smells. Does it or does it not smell?
It's not offensive, though. It's not like you're like ruining a car trip because you're opening a bag of beef jerky. People generally go, "Oh, can I have a piece of that beef jerky?" Or they just don't care. It does. It's not offensive. It doesn't make you go like, "Oh, what's that smell?" like it's not putrid.
I think
it's not
it is
like
putrid. That's where we disagree.
So if that's offensive, what's your number one snack?
My number one snack on here is Pringles.
Not on there. I want to know what your number one snack is. Period. Pringles.
No, it would probably be Goldfish. Goldfish is my number one all time. It's my most consumed snack.
Preposterous.
I like
Goldfish. You don't like
but
Goldfish
it's-
crackers?
I don't mind goldfish. I have nothing against goldfish at all. But you just went off and told me that beef jerky is one of the all-time worst things that you can get at a gas station, et cetera. It's offensive, blah, 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 blah. And then you turn around and you basically tell me the things that you try to hush a 4-year-old up with in a car is number one on the list.
I think Goldfish is a great snack. And anybody
Certainly
who
smiles back.
It is the snack that smiles back. And anybody who slanders it doesn't know what they're talking about. I'm gonna run through my list because
Go ahead. Let's hear it.
You started yours with terrible beef jerky. You might as well have some salmon in the car. Bring a grill and we can just cook up a salmon in the car because that's equivalent in smells. Pringles, number 1. Number 2, Nerds Gummy Clusters. This is a new one that's hit the market over the past couple of years. It's very, very good.
Yeah,
Regular
gummy
Nerds,
clusters.
they stink. Terrible. I would never, ever, ever consume Nerds. But you put them in a little gummy formation. Very good. Very good. My
Little
number
cluster.
2. Number 3, I already mentioned Goldfish, and I already had Pringles on there. Number 4, Cheez-Its. You can't go wrong with a Cheez-It. Now, I like the
That's a good one.
Now, I like the Cheez-It Grooves. Have you had the Cheez-It Grooves before?
I have not.
They're very, very good, and you get the white cheddar Cheez-It Grooves, and you're gonna have a good old
Some
time.
people say Goldfish and Cheez-Its are like kind of the same thing.
Nobody's ever said that ever on the planet. And then finally, peanut M&Ms. Peanut
I like
M&Ms.
peanut M&Ms. I had that actually yesterday when I went up to Miami. I got myself, which brings me to my list, Bonnie Arbor. None of you had drinks on here. I mean, you
Well,
got to
that's
get a
'cause
drink.
It was a snack. It was
Snack.
it was
You
snacks.
got to get a
Casey,
drink. You
it's
got to
called
get a
snacks.
drink. You got to get a drink up there
Casey,
when you're at the
snacks.
gas station. Body Armor, Pawnee Water,
You're still
Icy.
going to stick to that. This is the same guy that
What?
tried to use Harry Potter as a Christmas movie. This is the
is.
type of guy we got to work
It
with
is.
on these lists.
It is.
But go ahead.
But don't worry, I got plenty of others that'll reach 5 on here. Salt
Okay.
and vinegar chips is my chip of choice.
What a horrible smell. I mean,
that-
you talk about
that's-
bad smells.
that's
you're
where I
gonna
was-
you're
yeah.
gonna pretend that one doesn't stink.
No, I never said that. I just think it's my chip of choice.
Oh my God! Could you imagine being in a road trip with Trace and Casey?
You've
One's
been on a
got
road trip
beef
with me with
jerky.
salt and vinegar chips.
One's got beef jerky. Casey's got salt and vinegar. Oh my God! The smells of that car. This is what I was talking about. Smells in this van, Trace. This is what I'm talking about. Because we got guys bringing in things that shouldn't be brought into road trips. Go ahead, continue with your list.
And then I got sour gummy worms, the trolleys, the little trolley gummy worms. I like those a lot. And then
hate
I just
those.
put gummies, like gummy bears. I'm a
Wait,
gummy
so you have
guy.
multiple gummies on here?
Just gummies in general. Like I like the Nerds clusters a lot.
Okay.
The Grados mix. It's like a Chex mix, but it's the one that has the little brown chip in it. I don't know what they're called,
I
but
like that. I think I know
they're
what
like
you're
the
talking
really crunchy.
Yeah, I think I know what you're
Yeah,
talking
I
about.
like those a lot. And then sweet tart chews, which I think me and Trace agree on. Right? You like? Sweet tart
Yes.
chews?
My number 2, the snack that I'm looking for when I walk in the gas station is 100% the mini chews. The mini chews, to be clear.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bougie with that. I don't really like the sweet tarts. I don't like the sweet tarts, regular ones. I don't like the I don't know,
The big chews.
the big chews.
Yeah.
You got to be careful on this show right now. You know, I'm just trying to make sure that I stay out of the Elliot Rearings of the world comments that we were making today.
I wasn't making any terrible comments.
Yeah, you kind of slipped up. But the other one that I think is good that I used to look down upon until I tried it. You know, they say don't knock it until you try it. Is barbecue pork rinds. Now I will admit,
Oh my God.
those smells.
I mean,
they
this
can be-
is, dude, could you imagine going on a road trip with him across the country in a van, which I'm about to embark on? He's bringing beef jerky and he's bringing pork rinds that smell. I mean, this is going to be the most smelliest van in the history of vans. Terrible. Continue your list, though.
Well, I would say the pork rinds and kind of grippos, which unfortunately grippos you can't get anywhere, so I kind of leave those off the list. But those are 1A and 1B there in regards to that type of snack. I've also kind of grown to love trail mix. Now, not the traditional trail mix. There's like these nutritional mixes that they make now that are different than the OG trail mix that are more like peanut butter related. And I've had a few of those bags, and they are very, very good. But most of my list, I think, is consumed of kind of outside of, I guess, the sweet tarts, is consumed of very savory, more, you know, what many people would call, and I'm not saying it's a high level of it, but protein. Yours seems to be just fluff.
Sure. I mean, it certainly is fluff, but that's what you do on the road trip. So, I again, if you want to cook up a salmon with your pork rinds on a bed of pork rinds near your beef jerky, again, it's going to stink up the entire van, and it's going to be miserable for all of us. But I get you're more than free to do so.
Toasty peanut butter crackers too. I'm a big fan of that.
Those are very good.
I'm not
Those are
looking
very
for the
good.
cheese. The cheese is incredibly overrated, but I do like a nice toasty peanut butter cracker.
Oh,
Those are elite. That's the number one snack at a golf course for me is peanut butter crackers. So fun food for thought. All right, today's show is probably not going to go to 12p. It's probably not going to get there. Okay,
But
we fought hard. We started the show. We argued here for 15 minutes about who knows what we were arguing about. I don't know. Me and Casey were just talking about Votto and Goodberry being a part of, at least they should be considered to be a part of some team's draft council. But we were arguing for like 15 minutes, and I don't even know if we really knew what we were arguing about.
So
but we fought the fight.
I think we were agreeing, not disagreeing.
I think we got a couple things to go over here right before we end it, though. I have a couple videos and things I've sent to Casey.
Oh yeah.
I'd like to
Did you
show.
let Casey know that before just now?
Well, I could have, but I couldn't get a word in.
You couldn't get a word in
I
on
couldn't
today's show.
I couldn't get a word in. So
Gotcha.
So we have the chat poll question: does beef jerky stink? Yes, 52% of people do say yes. It does smell. Unfortunately for you, you lost. You lost. You're a loser. But that's okay.
Are you shouting stop the vote because the vote's not over yet? Show's
You're
not
right.
over.
The vote's not over. If you'd like to contribute to the vote, you can still do so.
Yeah,
right now.
contribute to the vote.
And please
We're
vote
still
yes.
waiting for the final push here.
Breaking news from Sir Boy. Joey Votto has officially confirmed it on the Dan Patrick Show this morning. He has received 0 offers to play Major League Baseball this season, which stinks. Which stinks. I'm not saying he would have been a great player this year, but again, I do think there's aspects to Joey's game where he could have helped somebody maybe. And we're not going to see it. I think his time is unfortunately over in Major League Baseball. I hope he comes back to the Reds as a coach in some capacity. I'd love that. But as of right now, he will not be playing Major League Baseball again. Any thoughts on that?
It is sad, I think, is the
It's very sad.
It's sad. Yeah, it's more sad than anything. If the guy wants to continue to play, and clearly at this point he's not going to get an opportunity, that is that's the difficult part, if you want to call it that, of essentially being an iconic player too. I think so. You have a situation where the Reds. This is a very fair and valid debate. You have the Reds who genuinely probably, and I say probably is trying to hedge here. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm insensitive to the situation, but there's just not any roster spots right now. I get people are going to scream and yell and tell me that you can make a roster spot for Joey Votto, and maybe he would come back on league minimum, but it's sad more than anything. And I would say the other part of this is, if anything, the secondary part would be that you have to feel like the Reds made the right decision if every other team in the league hasn't decided to sign him. And I'm not trying to make that like a dunk on situation. I'm not trying to suggest that you celebrate that in any stretch of the imagination. But again, maybe there's a Joe Flacco moment for Joey Votto. So
I hope there is. I hope there is. I sincerely hope there is. I just don't think he was good enough to contribute at a high level, really, for anybody across the league. I had a hard time believing if the Reds weren't going to bring him back, that anybody else would sign him. I didn't see a world where that was going to happen, and it sucks that it came true. He's not the guy that he was 10 years ago. It appears he does have a little bit of power, but just not enough to warrant a spot. But Joey Votto's a legend. And again, I think the Reds did handle that situation the right way for the most part. Should he have gotten a little bit of a farewell tour had they known? Yeah, I guess. But I think given what they knew, and Joey Votto probably wouldn't have wanted it anyway. But this is the Reds did the right thing.
I don't even know if you could have given him a farewell tour, because think about how incensed all the fan base would have been towards the franchise if they came out 3 months before the season was over and suggested that they weren't going to pick up his option and he wasn't going to be considered to come back, period.
It's a fair point.
Like, you can't do that. It was impossible. It was an impossible situation, and I'm not sitting here trying to say, hey, listen, look what I did. I'm not doing that. But I did sit, I think, right here at this very position and told everybody that Joey Votto was playing his last games at Great American Ballpark. If you want to put your head in the sand, go ahead. But don't be naive and don't say you wish you would have known, because the writing was on the wall if you opened your eyes to it. So I don't want to say I don't feel bad for fans that are like, oh, I wish I would. most fans and even people that were knowledgeable about the situation were trying to sound the alarm anyways. But from a holistic perspective, to get back on Joey, we'll see. Maybe it's not over. Maybe he has a chance to somehow come help a team towards the end of the season because they had some devastating injuries, a la Joe Flacco type situation, and he's fresh and ready to go. And maybe you could even argue he doesn't have the his body or his age, whatever term you'd like to use here, wouldn't really allow him to play 162 anyways. So maybe you could argue if he stays in shape, he keeps working out, that, you know, towards the end of this season, he could be a good pickup for somebody to help them down the stretch run, and then therefore his body would be able to hold up or withstand the last few months of a season versus trying to play an entire season. So we'll see.
That's fair.
But Joey's made millions and millions and millions of dollars playing a game that he's loved. I don't know really how sad you can feel for him per se, but I could say the situation you could feel somewhat sad about.
We also have breaking news in regards, speaking of new rules, we were trying to make some new rules. College football has some new rules for this coming season, I believe. And this is per Ross Dellinger, and also because Sir Boy put it in here. Thank you, Sir Boy. They're expected to add 3 new rules. Helmet communication. That will be
Love that.
I love it.
I wonder why they did that.
Tablets on the sideline, halftime. You're allowed to use tablets now.
Ooh,
in
what
college
brand do
football.
you think they're going to do? Do you think they're going to sign a big deal? Like every school's going to sign a big deal with the company.
Probably.
Yeah.
And then finally, and this is an interesting one that I don't like, 2-minute warning. 2-minute warning is being added to college football. It was probably inevitable that it was going to happen, but it just makes these 5-hour games even longer, and that's what I'm against. But
They're not 5 hours anymore, though. They're literally the
Yeah.
same as the NFL. And
I
I
don't
actually
know.
wish it went back. I don't want to say wish back to the old rules, but there was something about college football where it was nice to see more possessions. It seemed like now the games went way too fast. But, all right, we're going to end the poll right now. Just to, we're trying to, what's the olive branch? You extend an olive branch? I don't know what the exact term is to use there. But, we've had some banter, if we can call it that, in the chat today. We've had a little discourse.
we have
And
here's
here's the thing. And here's the thing. I'd like to end the chat poll of the question of the day with a tie, because that's what we come to love here in this town is ties.
how
50%.
how
We have 50% said yes, offensive in regards to beef jerky, smells that is, and 50% said no. So 50 yes, 50 no.
Is there a tiebreaker?
It was a tie.
There's no tiebreaker.
I say the tiebreaker is this. You ready for it?
Yeah.
I did this at the beginning of the show, and I'll do it to end the show. All right, let's take a vote. I say that beef jerky. Beef jerky is not offensively smelled. What do you have, Casey?
I also agree with Trace. I don't think it is.
All right,
offensive.
2 to 1. 2 to 1 vote. 2 to 1
I need
vote.
Reed to come in here. Then I need Reed to come in here and defend me because that's preposterous.
Nope, that's not how this works. This is called a democracy.
Correct.
You vote and you get the result you get,
We won
and you don't pitch a
3.
fit.
No, I am not 619 Bengals fan, but I'm probably going to try it this year. Casey, I sent you a couple things. This will be our cherry on top.
Please.
Presented
Bye.
United Dairy Farmers, the very best place in the United States of America.
My
to
favorite
get-
thing that you do
Yeah.
is that you look in that camera so hard when you're not even on camera, and the microphone's behind your face.
Yeah, it was probably. I mean,
Come on, guys.
I thought we were going to end the show on a positive note, but Trace is really just tearing me down here. That's okay though. Today's United Dairy Farmers. What is it? What's the segment? Cherry on top.
Cherry on
top. Trace ruined it. It's the cherry on top presented by United Dairy Farmers, the very best in the world. We're gonna start with Casey, the baseball clip before the Tom Brady clip.
Okay. Am I showing any audio for this?
No, we'll just talk over it. There might be audio, there might not be audio. This is Edwin Arroyo.
Yeah.
Really good baseball player.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about this clip is what? What would you say my favorite thing is here? This shows you how unique and weird and fun baseball can be.
I have no idea.
Arroyo was very upset right there.
That he missed it?
Yep, he missed it. He won 100%. He thought he flew out to left field, and instead he got a double, and everybody's cheering for him. But 100%, when you watch the replay, this is a fact. Right here, did they cut it off?
They cut it
He
off.
100% thought that he flew out. They cut it off. That's
Well,
terrible.
All right, so
That's
there's
terrible.
that, and then
But
finally,
he did think he did believe he flew out, but he didn't. He had a double because
we
the left
go.
fielder looked like I won't say it, but an outfielder that used to play for the Reds.
Okay. And finally, speaking of RAS scores, maybe the guy who probably had the lowest RAS score in the history of the sport happened to be the greatest to ever play the sport. This was him doing a 40-yard dash, I think this week or earlier this week. And this is a side-by-side of his 22-year-old self when he did the combine to start off his NFL career. And obviously at 46 years old, he is faster than he was at 22.
Well, that just goes to show you that it's never too late in life to get what you want to get done. You want to end the show on a positive note? Let's
end
do
it on a
that.
positive note.
Let's do that.
Let's end it on a positive
Let
note.
Tom Brady be the one to show you that anything is possible in this country. That you could come from any walk of life. And become whatever it is that you want to be. At any moment. You know Ray Kroc started something called McDonald's, an American iconic institution.
Wait a minute. Ray Kroc didn't start anything. That was founded by the McDonald brothers. And then he stole it from him.
He didn't steal. He didn't steal it from him.
How are you defending
He didn't
Ray
steal
Kroc?
it from him. Will you listen to what I'm about to say?
You started
He
off
made
great.
McDonald's what it ultimately became and is. Some would argue Ray Kroc was the Joe Burrow of McDonald's. He didn't start it, but he let it flourish. And Ray Kroc was at the ripe old age of 50-plus years old when he started that endeavor.
I'm pretty sure Ray Kroc was a really bad guy. I'm sure like that movie like just showed it was like a PG version, but I'm pretty sure he was a bad guy.
I think me and you see that film completely different.
Like you just ended the show, you were going to go on a really positive note, and I was rolling with you there. But then you just brought up a guy who just stole a business and had a bad deal and made a deal in bad faith with two guys who've started McDonald's.
Did that guy walk out of that restroom with $1 million check or not? I'd love for Ray Kroc of the world. I'll tell you right now.
It was a handshake deal.
Pat
No, he didn't.
McAfee, Portnoy, all the other ones. I don't even care. Disney, if you want to take advantage of me and buy Chatterbox for a few $1 million and let us peasants hang around for a little bit and ultimately make us all millionaires, and you turn it into a multi-billion-dollar company, you can take advantage of me. I'd love to be taken advantage of and become a millionaire for it. So you think that the McDonald's brothers got hosed?
I mean, if you watch the film, they very much did. He made a deal in bad faith. That's not how you conduct business.
I'm not suggesting for a second that the handshake deal didn't seem a little. I don't say that was morally incorrect. However, I want to know if that was 100% truth. I'll just leave it like this. I'll leave it like this. If it wasn't for Ray Kroc, you, me, and the rest of the chat would have no idea who McDonald's is or ever was.
I guess I
Period.
guess you're right.
Period.
I guess you're right.
And I'm not suggesting that the McDonald's brothers didn't get hosed perhaps on the deal when they did a handshake agreement. Okay, everyone's going to come after me and say that I'm here he goes again. I'm an anti-little guy.
Or you're just chilling. Yeah, you're cheering for the villain.
I'm not cheering for the villain. I'm saying that why is it always that he was the bad guy when he did make them millionaires? And oh, by the way, they were millionaires a long time ago. Back when I want to know what the calculation of what they got paid out to what it is today. And you tell me if that's a bad deal that they got.
Yeah, but I think they could. I think again, we're not going to get into this. We were
Well,
supposed
go
to
ahead. Go ahead.
We were supposed to end it on a positive
ahead.
note, and then you were like,
I also want to defend him for a little bit here.
who are you defending now?
I'm defending Kroc.
I mean, this is unreal. But go ahead.
This
I
is
mean,
great.
how in the world is he supposed to know that he's buying into this and it ends up being what it is today? There's never a guarantee of that.
What do you mean? Yeah, he did. He knew it. That's
Well,
why he did it.
I mean, there's never a guarantee. Seriously, there was never a guarantee that was actually going to happen. He thought it would, and it did, but there was never a guarantee.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is crazy, but I guess this is how we'll end the show. We're supposed to be positive, but instead, it's like we're cheering for the Joker and Batman. That's who we're cheering for now. That's it. All right.
I'm not cheering for anyone. I'm
you
just
are.
laying out the foundation that is 100% true and factual. So I guess I'll say another last quick question while we're on it, because we
Yeah,
have
sure.
until 12 p. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, we can still go.
We're contractually obligated to run right up until 12p because we said that at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, but we made an asterisk.
We did make asterisks, but that doesn't matter. My point or question to you would be, did Mark Zuckerberg hose the Winklevoss? What are the name? Did they get hosed too then?
Yeah, they absolutely did. They most certainly did. Yeah.
Yet they got a huge settlement check too then.
You came away with that from that movie saying that he did everything the right way.
What I'm suggesting is that
Zuckerberg
you're
absolutely
allowing
took that idea.
you're allowing movies that are depicted a certain way to shape your entire narrative of somebody. And what I'm saying is let's use the facts in life of what actually happened as an example. And the examples that I'm going to say are two things. There were a set of twins who became relatively famous, and oh, by the way, they also became millionaires because somebody else took their little idea, if you want to call it that, and ideas are worth, next to nothing in my opinion. There's a lot of people that come up with ideas in life and never execute them, and they're worth nothing. Ideas are a dime a dozen, is what I'm getting after.
They certainly are.
But I will admit that they're worth something. But my point is that you act like none of these guys got anything in return for what they did.
They did, but the point is he operated in bad faith. They're not doing it the right way. Would you say Mark Zuckerberg?
I have a question for you.
Do you think Mark Zuckerberg did the right thing with his friend when he wrote him out of the company without his knowledge?
Again, I don't know enough about that situation to speak on it openly or publicly.
Yeah.
So I'd have to read on that. But I'm not suggesting that blackballing or going behind people's back or doing things like that are okay. But with the if we can use the McDonald's reference again, I'm not going to feel sorry for a couple guys that had two restaurants when they were trying to make sure that they weren't. Listen, do you think that the McDonald's brothers were willing and open to opening up a bunch of restaurants? They weren't. Okay. Remember the milkshakes?
Yeah,
they didn't want to use the milkshake powder.
They were going to open up another restaurant though, and they were starting that process.
Gotcha. You think they would have gotten there?
They were starting the process of expanding. They were opening up another restaurant, correct? But that's okay.
Fair enough. Well, you get to
you
be
like Darth Vader, you like the Joker, you like Voldemort. I'm more of a Harry Potter guy. I like Luke Skywalker. I like those kinds of guys. I see which kinds of guys you like, and I see which kinds of guys I like, and they're clearly not the same kind of guys. Casey, what kind of guys do you like?
I mean, I like good guys, but I'm like I said, I don't think there's like some moral level there between that deal. I mean, like I said, it was
the handshake deal's the deal. Is that what you're hung up on?
I thought the handshake deal was bad faith. Yeah. Handshake deal's bad faith.
And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna do some extensive research today on how that handshake deal went down because I also watched another movie called Moneyball, right? And there's a lot of things in Moneyball that don't add up, right?
This is where Reed got in your head.
No, he's not in my head.
Yeah, he did.
You start to do the math and you start to ask yourself, wow, movies, they don't tell the whole truth a lot of times.
No, they dramatize it.
Wow, they dramatize it. Do you think maybe they dramatized the handshake deal? Perhaps, just maybe, possibly.
All right. I thought we were gonna end on a positive note. We didn't, but
well, you ruined it. I was getting ready to say that if you're 50 years old, I want you to know that Ray Kroc had not yet done really anything with McDonald's in his life. Yet he turned around at 50 plus years old and decided that he wanted to start something called the McDonald's Corporation. And it had become what it is known today because of him. So it's never too late. Just like Tom Brady and his 40-yard dash, it's never too late to try to be better. I'll leave it at that. So today, our show went from 10A to 11:58. We'll keep track of that.
We just go 2 more minutes. I mean, you might as well just go 2 more minutes then.
I don't think we go.
Because Reed said, I mean, and this is where we have to keep going now because if you're going to talk about it dramatizes in favor of certain people.
Yes.
The founder was about Ray Kroc. It was about honoring him. So it dramatized.
Was it really honoring him? Because there was some parts of that movie where I don't know if it really honored him.
It made him look like the smartest guy in the room. That's what it did. It was in favor of Kroc.
Did it really though? Because
yeah,
it also made it look like he did not treat his wife very well. So I don't think it was. I don't think this was the Last Dance documentary.
Let's finish on, Natty Ron wants us to finish on a sports thought.
All right.
I can finish on one. I can find one. Hold on. Let me find one. I got one.
Let's hear it.
We are about to embark on a journey.
Yes, we are.
A journey to Arizona to watch the Cincinnati Reds. When the Cincinnati Reds win the World Series this year, and that will be in October, when that happens in October, I want everybody to know that it was because of this trip. We were the ones responsible for the World Series. I won a World Series ring. I won it, and I'm going to get it. I will protest outside of that stadium again. I've done it once, I'll do it again, until I get my championship ring. Because what myself, 2 videographers, Trace and Nick, are going to embark on is going to be more stressful, more difficult than anything that the Reds have had to face this season. And we are doing it because of them. So I would like my World Series ring, and the Cincinnati Reds are going to the World Series. Final point.
Okay, that's pretty good. I'll stay on the Reds topic. I was driving in, as I usually do here, because I don't walk to work, believe that or not. And I thought to myself,
By the way,
we
we have a show on Monday, too. They're thinking we're leaving, like, we're not going to have another show. We're going to have one more show. We have one more show on Monday.
Yeah, to be clear, we are doing a show on Monday.
And then we leave Monday night.
We are doing a show on Monday, and it'll be a very, very serious sports talk show, of course, before we leave. And we will all say a slight, small prayer before we take off to hope that we get here back in good faith and we come back as we left. Maybe we come back as new and improved people because of the things that we venture and see, and it opens our minds and makes us feel a little bit better about the life and the world that we live in. But I do want to mention what I thought of when I was driving in to work today. There was this profound epiphany, if we can call it that, of where we are in Cincinnati sports. And I feel as if, and maybe this will get made fun of for future years to come, and the generations will mock me for what I'm about to say. But there's just some innate feeling that I have that it's almost to a point now where it's this city's time. Say whatever you want about the history of the past. We hear it all the time, at least our generation does, about how, Oscar Robinson was a great player, and you should have seen Johnny Bench and Pete Rose, and of course, how could we never forget the Big Red Machine? And even for again, guys of my generation, where you hear about the Barry Larkins and Chris Sabos of the world, and wow, you should have seen the wire-to-wire run in 1990, and all of these things that we've come to know and lure and try our best to love when we really don't know much about it. It's just like the stories we were told as we were sitting on our grandparents' lap. They were letting us know about how beautiful it used to be a Cincinnati sports fan. And I was thinking on the way in, that's about to be our story. It's about to be our story.
That's right.
It's about to be our time to reminisce when we're old about what this young core is going to do for us, and perhaps what Joe Burrow will do for the Cincinnati Bengals. I think our time has come. But for this show, our time is up. So until next time, I hope you have a lovely weekend. The best weekend.
Quiplash up next.
And if you're a member, there is more shows to come. But as always, thank you very, very much for watching the show and supporting us. Monday, we have big news. We have a brand new sponsor that we will tell you all about. But in order to watch this show, you need to be safe this weekend. I hope you're safe, and I hope you have a lovely, lovely time. And thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for supporting us in our dumb show that we call Off the Bench with Trace Fowler, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Take care, everybody.